Good morning, and thank you all for being here at this awkward hour. Mr. Anurag Batra, thank you for your generous comments, and Parul, thank you for your not so gentle bullying. I'm happy to be here, and I am also delighted that we have many young professionals who are going to win awards this evening. I guess some of you have been able to escape the treadmill and be here to listen. For a change, I decided that this time I should not just shoot off the hip and try and actually live up to the idea of a keynote address and write down some stuff that I wanted to share. So I'm going to make an exception from my usual approach of just sharing a few random thoughts, and I hope that my organized thoughts are as palatable as my random ones. So I had two fascinating experiences at work this last week which I wanted to share. They're fascinating because of the tremendous mental distance between one and the other. This is a little routine now for the escapade that I am now involved in, having joyously sold my company some time ago. And I think it's one of the smartest decisions I took was to exit when I did, because as all the senior professionals in the room will tell you, that we have been at an inflection point as far as the industry is concerned for the last 5 years at least, and it's very visible today to those working at it on a daily basis. But this lack of routine in my new escapade is what makes me rise with a smile in the morning, and I joyously head out to either the coffee shop of the moment, or you might find me doing a Zoom from some hotel or the other, but it's all the same. The first experience that I held was with a global giant, a West Coast-based private equity powerhouse, and the task was to put together a very closed-door one-day session for global leaders, and their calling list for this one-day session was the head of Perplexity, the head of NVIDIA, so you name it. So clearly they knew the people they were trying to get. And having signed them into going into this one-day retreat, the goal was to try and figure out with me how a global South positioning would give AI some more space. And could they sort of push the idea of a global South positioning for AI to make it obvious to the world, which is rapidly attempting to regulate them, that their attempt to transform the global South based on global South data was transformation for good. So the assignment included putting together a draft working paper. I suggested that they use AI to draft it. And this paper would then be presented to these very smart leaders to start their deliberations. So when I am working on this assignment, I am trying to figure out whether the process would work, whether these kinds of people locked up inside a room would tear each other up, or whether they would actually participate in this process, and how to make sure that it comes together. I can't say anything more, unfortunately, on this wonderful assignment, because if I speak anything more, I will inevitably end up violating client secrecy. The second exercise was equally fascinating. So someone called me in for a cloud kitchen-like unlisted company and asked me that, can you help us figure out questions on what the current aviation crisis in India means? Could this lead to a new phase of investments into additional airline capacity? We were required to do blue skies, pardon the pun, thinking as to whether policymakers' minds can be figured out on this issue of aviation, whether they'll give extra allowances to new investors, what's the pushback likely from the legacy players, and is there an opportunity for a massive takeover? So, while looking at this project prospect, I thought that actually only a tiny part of this involves communications, and a lot of it involves actually figuring out the minds of policymakers who are not supposed to reveal what they are about to do. Is somebody else speaking? Or is it the next room? Wonderful. Are you guys okay, or do you want to send Parul to beat them up? Okay. Shall we continue? Yes. Okay. So on this matter also, I won't say too much, because especially on this one, if I say too much, I might actually be silenced, knowing some of the people involved. But the assignments were made easy because in both of these, I had top quality partners. Some of them are from agencies which may actually be in the room, and some of them emanate from very quiet boutique agencies working either out of India or globally. And they often bring me their grand ambitions to fire up future growth or problems to solve. Some say they are confused by the inflection points either in the marketplace or in their operating environment. And certainly, none of them have any experience of the future, as they can't. But all of this, only one part of the solution is my key offering, communications. But the other part that I craft with multiple agencies is to make either founders or CEOs feel involved. And for them to feel involved, they have to sense integrity, innovation, and intuitive intelligence. This intelligence is often disguised as just years of experience, but it also involves being able to pick up the phone and speak to one of the people in the room and say, there is some communications involved in this, can you handle this piece? And I find that having a large number of former colleagues at any point of time on my speed dial helps me achieve some of the basic requirements that are expected in some of these complex assignments. The only reason I shared these two examples of work that I'm currently doing is to show you the 30-year-olds who are in this room and the 40-year-olds, and hopefully some 50-year-olds, the future. Anurag spoke in his speech about the singularity, but communications tomorrow is going to be dominated by some of the stuff that I am actually doing today in terms of the way you put the work picture together and the way you deliver results to the client. There's a unicorn being built out there somewhere in stealth mode. There are giant legacy players who need to cope with the future. But it does involve communications, not in the way that many of us practiced it just 2 weeks ago, but in the way it's got to be practiced 2 years hence. And that is the real point where the rubber hits the road, as long as rubber hits the road for a few more years. The consulting practice that I gave you a glimpse of is no longer, therefore, communications or PR or public affairs or lobbying. It's not that media relations does not matter. You still need to be able to put, as I said, place the stories that you must. You must do it without having to pay for it in some kind of crass, paid for transactional scheme. And can you do that? Do you have what it takes to make that happen? I feel today, looking at all of us, and I include myself, a quiet confusion. Is it the silence of the lambs as we hurtle into 2026? Are we like marionettes in a puppet show, or like lambs herded by deaf shepherds? The show you're partying in now has a demented set of masters. They hold the threads in their ever so shaky hands. We should all be very nervous. In fact, we should not be huddled in a room. We should not be listening passively to a speech or even to a keynote address. This is the time to stand and shout that into the void, because you don't know what you will hear back. You need to seek answers. You need to raise your own voice. You need to rebel against puppets who play with AI. And I recognize that I have 8 minutes and 46 seconds. So I will say that we often called the current phase of existence VUCA. But VUCA is a happy phrase that I think is already somehow behind the curve. VUCA was coined by the War College, but to my mind, that war is changing direction very rapidly. Some of us also think that besides communications, that the fundamentals of leadership have not changed. Just like you believe that the fundamentals of communications haven't changed, the fundamentals of leadership, you think, hasn't changed. But I think it has changed. It has changed because today we are dealing with Gen Zs and millennials, and some of you will also inevitably have to deal with Gen Alphas. So I don't recommend you do. I don't recommend that you try and work with the rules of leadership that you are used to working with, because I think that many of them have expectations that can't be contained by mere designations or pay packets. Also, let me tell you that the clients today and the clients tomorrow have a problem with many of the services that we are currently able to provide, because there isn't enough experience, there isn't enough access, there isn't enough resourcefulness. People are so limited in what they are able to conjure up for you. They're still sticking to the old templates, and that is dangerous. And today's clients' needs are not going to be met by that. The only way you can actually acquire some of this is, unfortunately, not just by gray hair, but also by experience. It correlates with the numbers of hours you've put into the business, the dedication and devotion, the ability to ignore all aspects of work-life balance. Sorry, millennials, it doesn't exist. And if it does, you're not actually getting a job doing any of the stuff that I'm talking about. Remember that if you are not on the menu today, then it's unlikely that you're going to be at the high table tomorrow. If you're not called in today for advice, then there's no chance that you're going to be a respected professional in the way things are evolving tomorrow. You may yet get to shape the future when it's still soft clay. Some of you may turn into entrepreneurs who think that it's time now that they turn to work with clear skies and clients who have either misplaced faith in their skills or a misbegotten belief that cheap is cheerful. But you will drop the clay on the floor. And the client will then need to call for help. It's a high probability. It is a probability unless you listen to the wisdom of those who have gone before. I'm not saying listen to this speech, but I'm saying listen to the wisdom of those who have gone before. That wisdom makes attempts at any solution likely to be listened to by your client. Those partnerships that I talked about earlier are the secret ingredient to making success in these post-VUCA times. On AI, since Anurag referred to it many times, AI may conceivably become your closest collaborator. Don't fear it, but please don't romanticize it either. Partner with it in parts. Let it amplify your thinking, but you've got to start with your thinking. Let it not replace your judgment. Let it try and do some research for you. And even as the singularity approaches, watch out for when AI hallucinates or becomes a hoarse whisperer. Don't trust everything that you listen to. When machine intelligence meets human sensitivity, that's when breakthroughs actually happen. But at best, at least for the next few months, and I'm not saying few years, AI is still a blunt instrument. It helps you make decisions, but the basis has to be stuff I've told you about already. Talent. Since we are talking about tomorrow's talent in this industry, it questions everything and settles for nothing. Talent today does not stay, as I said already, for a job description, but sadly, inexperience often makes them opt for money as a measure. They do this far too early in the game, and those who play that game, you must let them carry on, because there's no point trying to keep them with more money. Wrong move if you're a leader. As a result, there is also this extreme rapid rise of the lack of loyalty. So if you're in your job today and below 40, remember your manager must have learned a bitter lesson in the past, especially during the trauma years of COVID, and it's probably traumatized permanently their ability to actually function as managers. But one thing they don't expect from you anymore is loyalty. But resilience is what will make you survive in this VUCA world. Have the resilience and make sure that that resilience is visible when you deal with a client. There are rumors that I am a practitioner in crisis management. But today, crisis has also changed. Crisis is no longer about just saving face. It is about the very survival of your business. The policy framework today moves at a pace that most companies have never experienced before. While professing recognition of the way business and markets function, governments today face immense pressure. This pressure is from citizens who are not just consumers, but also so-called commentators. So governments have to move quickly for their fragile popularity and for their eventual survival. So policies get altered in new time frames which we never expected before. These time frames were previously measured in years, no longer. Today, a crisis can alter an entire industry faster than you can change, or even Piyush could change, the punchline of an ad. And some of you here will know what I'm talking about in the context of today's crisis. So, as you take on bigger roles, please understand that influence no longer comes just from media. It forms in the corridors. It does not form in the blocks and bhavans. It happens sometimes on social media. The war rooms matter a lot more. Boardrooms still matter a lot, but conference rooms don't matter at all. So get real life experience, read the energy, the hesitation, and also the hope. So let me just say one line in conclusion, since it says in red, time's up. Step into your journey with a clear conviction and a steady hand. Lead like the world is listening to hear you fall, because that's what the world is listening for. But somewhere in the future, the people you inspire will already be grateful. They are grateful for the choices that you make today. Thank you.